I'm going to jump right in today because we have so much to get to. Donald Trump sent 59 Tomahawk missiles to Syria. This is the first direct action taken by the United States during Syria's 6-year civil war. Varied claims about the accuracy of the 59 Tomahawk missiles, the U.S. claiming 58 of 59 hit their targets. Videos released combined with other sources claim that fewer than half of the 59 Tomahawk missiles hit their targets. And Russia, which has been supporting the Assad regime for years, was reportedly warned in advance about this strike, which is a detail that'll be relevant a little bit later when we talk more about what this all means about Russia. This was reportedly a reaction from Donald Trump to seeing the videos of the civilians, including children, that died as a result of the sarin gas attacks last week, believed to be at the hands of Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian regime. What does this tell us about the Trump White House's attitude or philosophy towards Syria and foreign policy? Nothing. This is merely the use of a tactic absent any strategy. Remember that Donald Trump opposed military action in Syria for years. Trump was going to be the president who wouldn't get us into wars, like he said during the debates and the campaign, etc., unlike what supposedly Hillary Clinton was going to do for us. And there's been a ton of discussion about this action by Trump being unconstitutional. And that's true. Trump didn't get approval for Congress, something Trump himself said in 2013 that Obama would need to do in order to take action against Syria. Recall Donald Trump's tweet from August 29th of 2013. What will we get for bombing Syria besides more debt and a possible long-term conflict? Obama needs congressional approval. Trump clearly in 2013 understood that a military response would require congressional approval, but he went ahead with military action without congressional approval. And this is an important criticism, Pat, but I think today we should focus on a criticism on the merits of this attack.
Right. The constitutionality and whether it was a good idea or not are two separate things, but I think it's clearly unconstitutional.
Yes.
The Bush administration after 9/11 signed the authorizations for military force that allows them to fight al-Qaeda. And of course, Obama and Trump interpreted that to extend to ISIS because ISIS is an offshoot of al-Qaeda. But this is the Syrian government. This is a sovereign area.
You're really stretching the boundaries of that argument to argue that it would cover this. And then we'll also talk about what Donald Trump wants out of all this, if anything, if we can even discern it. So we're now seeing all sorts of elected officials, the neocons, the corporate Democrats, the further leftists. Everyone has an angle here. You've got the neoconservatives who were against Trump moving in Trump's direction as a result of this, some of them anyway. You have libertarians and so-called constitutional conservatives moving against Trump on this. You've got corporate Democrats just confused because some of them want to oppose Trump, but have kind of wanted to go after Syria for a while now. So they're in a state of disarray, not knowing what they should be saying. The people I'm most sickened by are both the Democrats and Republicans and the independents, party doesn't matter, who were not on board with Trump up until 4 days ago, but now think Trump is doing well because he sent 59 Tomahawk missiles to Syria, which strikes me as absolutely depraved. And 9 civilians, including 4 children, were killed as a result of these 59 Tomahawk missiles. And what did we get, right? There are many reasons not to strike Syria, depending on what your point of view is. If you want to unseat Bashar al-Assad, and you're not willing to do boots on the ground, which Trump said he's not willing to do, military experts don't think that with airstrikes you'll be able to get Assad out. So that would be a failed strategy. Now, we don't know if Trump actually wants Assad out because Rex Tillerson recently said, the White House isn't really concerned with getting Assad out. But hypothetically, if the White House wanted Assad out, airstrikes aren't going to do it, and Trump claims he doesn't want boots on the ground. If the goal is to unseat Assad and Trump is willing to do boots on the ground, that would be a major reversal. I mean, the entire, the last 5 years nearly of Trump tweets and campaign statements during the primary and campaign statements during the general election have been no incursion in Syria, no boots on the ground, I won't get us into wars. So that would be a big a reversal for Trump. And the other question would be, well, maybe the issue is just do airstrikes so you can tip the balance towards the Syrian rebels and they can get Assad out. Military experts also believe that that's unlikely to work. And if it did work, the Syrian rebel groups are not one group. You're talking about deeply fractured groups, many of them incredibly radical. So if it worked, which military experts don't believe it would, and you get Assad out by emboldening the Syrian rebel groups, which of those groups takes over? And do you just create infighting among those groups who are far less diplomatically experienced than Assad? Not to give him any kind of praise. We're talking about a monster here. Do you really improve anything if you do that?
Right, and to get Assad out of power would mean much more than a symbolic attack, and that's
Yes.
what this was, a symbolic attack, because we didn't go after the runway at all, and this base was back up and running by the next day.
That's right. Bashar al-Assad's military was using this base the next day to fly planes. And lastly, whatever happens with the Trump-Russia investigation, Russia has been supportive of the Assad regime for a while. They are not particularly happy with this harebrained strike, and it could make them more belligerent, and they might relish the opportunity for escalation, not directly against the U.S., but in the region generally. So in total, we have a strike here of dubious legality, which is just the haphazard use of a tactic with no strategy, and it risks escalation into a major powers conflict. So what I'm getting to is this is likely an optics campaign from the Trump White House, but to make people think what? Remember my story. This is the perfect time for a false flag attack. Not literally a false flag, but pointing out that with Trump's approval rating so low, the most effective way to most quickly bring up his approval rating would be to coalesce the country if the U.S. is attacked, or get involved in some kind of military campaign to transmit strength. Days after our story, Noam Chomsky said the exact same thing, by the way, and this more broadly appears to be an appeal to start looking presidential. And again, it's a completely haphazard strategy, or tactic rather, and it's sad to me that it actually works, that some people see someone launching missiles as more presidential rather than an erratic, confused leader.
And we know it worked because Gallup has his approval rating now at 40%, which was up from 35, 37 just about a week ago.
Yep.
He's going to lose some support from the alt-right, maybe, who thought he was going to be non-interventionalist.
Sure.
But overall, it's going to improve.
And there's more to it. There's more to the double standard. Let's look at some other past tweets from Donald Trump, one in which he said, "We should stay the hell out of Syria. The rebels are just as bad as the current regime. What will we get for our lives and billions of dollars? Zero." Also sending out a tweet back in 2013, again, to our very foolish leader, do not attack Syria. If you do, many very bad things will happen, and from that fight, the U.S. gets nothing. Bottom line, anyone who's drawing any major conclusions from this about Donald Trump's foreign policy perspective is misguided. All this tells us is that the White House and Trump are clueless, erratic, and aimless. And Donald Trump, there are people who are seeing this and saying, oh, Trump clearly has revisited his foreign policy ideas, and now we're getting a much deeper view into the Trump doctrine on interventionism. But no, wrong. There is no principle or strategy or underlying beliefs that tie together what we're seeing here. It's disjointed confusion, throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Now, if you're not against this type of military action, there's another hypocrisy. The same people who are saying that Trump was going to be a great and methodical leader when it comes to the use of the military, some of those same people are commending Trump for changing his mind over a few hours and impulsively sending 59 missiles on a whim with no broader strategy. That is an incredible paradox to me. And then we've got to talk about Russia. If you're drawing major conclusions about Trump-Russia from this, you're also misguided. We have more news about dozens of meetings that Jared Kushner had with Russians that were not reported on Jared Kushner's application for a top-secret national security clearance. The fact that Trump did something that seemingly Vladimir Putin wouldn't like is not a big thing when you have so much else on the other side of the ledger. And again, because this is just a random haphazard tactic in the absence of a broader strategy, we can imagine a way in which this benefits both Trump and Putin. I mean, Russia's economy has not been doing well. Corruption scandals, Russian diplomats dying under suspicious circumstances, the crackdowns on dissent, an escalation in Syria, and with the U.S. by proxy, could be good for Donald Trump to both transmit strength and appear to be distant from Putin. And it could be good for Putin as he heads into his next election and wants Russia to be seen as the bold player on the world geopolitical stage. So we cannot deduce anything so far about Trump-Russia. And in fact, if we see Russia as relatively quiet about this, and it's not clear that we're going to, it could also be easily assumed that the warning of Russia ahead of time is part of the implicit or explicit statement that no more is going to be done by Trump. Many commenters are saying, oh, this is a distraction or a false flag or whatever, and many of them are getting slammed for that. You don't have to believe, Pat, in a far-ranging conspiracy theory to believe that there could be ulterior motives for what we're seeing here. That is not absurdly conspiratorial in any way.
Right, and we don't really know at this point yet if he just acted impulsively and saw the chemical attacks going on in Syria, which created a visceral reaction to react, which is completely understandable, but when you're in a position of power, you have to weigh all the factors there, or if he's playing some sort of four-dimensional chess.
Right, he might be playing chess where four dimensions, playing it in time as well. Why not bring in the fourth dimension? I like it, Pat. But you're also getting at the big hypocrisy here, which is, this is what really proves it's a stunt to me. If Donald Trump was worried enough about what was going on there to the innocent kids and civilians that he decided to launch missiles to help people, risking collateral damage and getting collateral damage. Remember, 9 people, including 4 kids, died as a result of these bombings. Why won't Trump allow Syrian refugees to come to the United States? In other words, if not everybody in Syria is a terrorist, and some of the people in Syria are worth taking military action over, how could those same people not be worthy of refugee status in the United States? If you support the strike because of the chemical attack by Assad, but you're against allowing the same people you're trying to defend to come to the United States as refugees, that's complete and utter hypocrisy. And that is the biggest hypocrisy with what we're seeing in Syria. Last thing, Steve Bannon was removed from the National Security Council. And I said at the time, I don't think this makes a practical difference, because before he was on the NSC, he attended that dinner where Donald Trump casually approved the botched Yemen raid. And I believe that Bannon will still be involved in national security decisions. A picture was released of Stephen Bannon, sort of on the right top side of this picture, in the Mar-a-Lago Situation Room when this incursion was taking place. This is after Bannon was removed from the National Security Council. So I think we were right on that, Pat, that this doesn't mean Steve Bannon is no longer going to participate in national security decisions.
Yeah, and Steve Bannon's the chief strategist, which is by and large a political position. Obviously, this move has political implications, but you'd like to think that he's acting on what's in the best interest of the country and Syria rather than just what's going to get him reelected.
Yeah, that's, wow. I mean, I know you're sort of saying this is what we would like to imagine, but I mean, we're talking about Breitbart propagandist Stephen Bannon here. So that's what's going on so far, and we'll keep you posted about it. There's a YouTube advertiser boycott going on, which means ads are not playing on our YouTube channel, which means we're no longer making any money from these videos. Please help us fight back and replace that revenue. You can become a member at davidpakman.com/membership. If you want a discount, use the coupon code IVoted17. We need your help.